Hello Ice and Fire Nerds, this is Chris and we're going to continue our Game of Thrones Foreshadowing series. And if you're seeing this for the first time, yes, technically it won't all be foreshadowing. Some things are just parallel moments, some things are just straight up hints. But what we're going to do is try to show these scenes in depth going back through the entire series of Game of Thrones. Dig in a little bit deeper, show entire scenes, single lines of dialogue, stuff hidden in the background, whatever it may be. And then try to show the payoff scene later in a later episode or a later season for that matter. So anyway, let's pick up where we left off. We are on Season 1, Episode 3, Lord Snow. Alright, so we open up with Ned arriving at King's Landing, and then he walks into the throne room, and we see this.
Thank the gods you're here, Stark. About time we had some stern northern leadership.
Glad to see you're protecting the throne.
What's the line? The king shits and the hand wipes.
So for a quick little history lesson, almost the same thing happened before. Ned walks into the throne room during the sack of King's Landing. Jaime is sitting on the Iron Throne, and of course Ned took that as a slight towards Robert and the rebellion, as if he was going to take power for himself. He saw where he had killed the Mad King, Aerys, and basically broke his vows as a member of the King's Guard, but Jaime never bothered to tell Ned what actually happened and why he killed him, which essentially saved the entire population of King's Landing. Ned never really respected Jaime after he broke his vows because Ned's such an honorable man, but you can see here in this scene, it's almost a repeat. Jaime's sitting on the stairs, and he stands up and reminds Ned of what happened to his father and brother, and that event is what actually started Robert's rebellion. That is the event where Lyanna had already gone missing, apparently kidnapped by Rhaegar Targaryen. Ned's father Rickard and his brother Brandon went to King's Landing to see Aerys to demand the release of Lyanna, and Aerys had Ned's father burned alive and made Brandon, his older brother, watch with essentially what was a noose around his neck. As he watched his father burn, he actually killed himself trying to save his father. And this is what Jaime's reminding Ned of here. Now Jaime is being Jaime here and kind of being an asshole to Ned. But the part where he tells Ned, you know, after he stabbed the Mad King in the back and he thought about how the Mad King was still laughing as his father burned, it almost felt like justice. So then of course Ned kind of replies, so that's what you tell yourself at night? So the point being here that Ned was being a little bit hard-headed too, because I think Jaime was almost trying to reconcile things here, almost apologizing in his own way. You can see by the look on his face as Ned comes back and says, is that what you tell yourself at night? That Jaime's kind of surprised that he didn't take that as a thank you, you were avenging my father and brother. Now, was Jaime technically trying to avenge Ned's father? No, but he was in fact trying to save the population of King's Landing, and we get the full story here.
We opened the gates and my father sacked the city. He told me to bring him my father's head. Turn to his pyromancer. Burn them all, he said. Commanded you to kill your own father and stand by while thousands of men, women and children burned alive. Would you have done it? Would you have kept your oath then?
So the point being here that we get a lot of character development, and at this point we don't know why Jaime's such an asshole, and we don't know why that Ned and Jaime hate each other so much, but we learn a little bit of history here and the real reason that Jaime had to go against his vows. And this is basically why Jaime hates the idea of knighthood and all the vows you have to take, because you're basically having to forego one vow to uphold another. So I thought this was a pretty damn good scene here, and the very interesting thing here is that we all kind of rooted for Ned. We all thought he is the good guy, but this shows you that he was kind of a hard head too about this whole situation and never took the time to understand Jaime's perspective. And in our next scene we see Ned walk into the room to have the first council meeting as Hand of the King, and Varys is the first to greet him.
Lord Stark.
Lord Varys.
Now I think this shows right up front that Varys actually is a true friend of the Starks. He does have an ulterior motive here, of course, that being the Targaryens. I'm not sure that he would know anything about Jon Snow being a Targaryen, but I do think that Varys legitimately gives a damn about the realm and good people to run the realm, and I think we can see that here.
Tell me something, Varys. Who do you truly serve?
The realm, my lord. Someone must.
So of course we see Varys try to help Ned later on as he's in the Black Sails before his death. And I think this shows that Varys legitimately cares about the kingdom, not necessarily Ned personally, but with his endgame here as far as the Targaryen restoration, I believe he thinks that Ned and the Starks are honorable people, and they would possibly eventually help Daenerys Targaryen rule the Seven Kingdoms in an honorable way to bring peace to the realm. But that didn't quite work out. And in the very same scene, as far as the first council meeting as him being hand of the king, we see Littlefinger greet Ned.
Perhaps you chose the wrong man to duel with.
Well, it wasn't the man that I chose, my lord. It was Catelyn Tully.
So that wasn't awkward at all. I mean, that's not something you tell another man about his damn wife. So in a way, since they were talking about Catelyn, I think that kind of led to this scene in the very same episode.
One of several such establishments I own.
You're a funny man. Huh? A very funny man.
Ned!
So he talks about his wife in the very first meeting. He basically says, I still love your wife. Now he does try to help them out as far as keeping it secret that she's there, but Ned didn't appreciate Littlefinger bringing up his wife in the first place, and damn sure didn't appreciate him bringing her to a brothel. And in our next scene we see Arya and Sansa eating supper with Septa Mordane.
Enough of that, young lady. Eat your food.
I'm practicing.
Now there's certainly many scenes that could pay this off. She is starting to hate people and hold on to this idea of vengeance, so I think it leads directly to this.
Sorry.
Think shit.
Is that the first man you've killed?
The first man.
Next time you're going to do something like that, tell me first.
So yes, I think this leads to the killing of her first man via knife and not needle. Now, of course, she already had killed somebody. She killed the little boy in King's Landing as she fled, but it was almost an accident. This was her first actual kill of a full-grown man that was on her damn list. All right, for our next scene, we have Cersei and Joffrey having a little conversation as he heals his horrible wounds.
You killed the beast. You only spared the girl because of the love your father bears her father.
I didn't.
When Aerys Targaryen sat on the Iron Throne, your father was a rebel and a traitor.
So they're basically having a conversation about the North and the Starks, establishing that they are in fact their enemies. And I think Cersei's actually trying to give him some decent counsel here as to when to use his power and when not to use it. Joffrey actually says this.
Crush them. Seize Winterfell and install someone loyal to the realm as Warden of the North.
So of course later on he does install a new Warden of the North. Of course this was under Tyrion Lannister's orders, but under Joffrey's reign. So that leads to this.
And you, the Warden of the North. No more Starks to bow and scrape to.
Now also in the same conversation, Cersei tells Joffrey,
The North cannot be held. Not by an outsider, it's too big and too wild. And when the winter comes, the seven gods together couldn't save you and your royal army.
And of course she's absolutely right, and that leads to this. So I think this is pretty cool actually. In the same conversation we get hints that we're going to see a new Warden in the North, kind of the downfall of the Starks, and in the same conversation a hint that the Starks will in fact return to power at some point by defeating Ramsay Bolton, and that happened to be in Season 6 Episode 9 Battle of the Bastards. And in the same scene as the Septa sends Arya off to her room, Ned walks in and we see this.
What's happening here?
Arya would rather act like a beast than a lady.
Now, I don't think this scene has actually been paid off yet. I mean, it's obviously still kind of hinting the fact that Arya will become something other than a lady, but when she said the word beast, it got me thinking, does this have something to do with Arya's endgame and perhaps Nymeria? I guess we'll see. And shortly thereafter, Ned comes into Arya's room and gives her this talk.
This is no toy. Little lady shouldn't play with swords.
I wasn't playing. And I don't want to be a lady.
Now specifically here, Arya says that she doesn't want to be a lady. Now obviously this is kind of continuing the theme about Arya's character as far as her not being a typical lady of Winterfell. She's more of a warrior, as we saw in episode 1 when Bran missed the target and Arya did hit the target right dead center. It kind of showed that she was going to be a little bit different as far as the typical lady of this time. And then she goes on to say,
I hate them. I hate all of them. The Hound, the Queen and the King, and Joffrey and Sansa.
Sansa was dragged before the king and queen.
So I definitely think this is a prelude to this.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister, the Red Woman, Beric Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr, Ilyn Payne, the Mountain, the Hound.
So again, in my opinion, this was a prelude to her actual list. This was kind of her already naming off the people that was going to be on her list before she made it an official prayer every night before she goes to sleep. And in this same conversation, which was packed full of goodies, Ned tells Arya this.
You're a Stark of Winterfell. You know our words.
winter is coming.
And I think that's definitely a direct parallel when Arya says this in season 6.
A girl is Arya Stark of Winterfell, and I'm going home.
So again, this is pretty similar to the Joffrey-Cersei conversation. In that case, we had the kind of a hint that the Starks would no longer be in Winterfell, and in the same conversation, we had a hint that they would also return to Winterfell at some point. We're getting some clues here that Arya is going to go away, become something different other than a lady, that being a ruthless assassin. And in the same conversation, at some point, she decides to leave behind the idea of being a faceless assassin, although we'll see if that pans out. But I definitely think we'll see some payoff for that particular scene in season 7. So anyway, guys, that'll do it for this episode. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Next time, we'll pick up in part 9 right where we left off. So in the meantime, as usual, thank you for all the support, especially to you guys on Patreon. And as usual, a huge shout out to my Patreon executive smokescreen producers, Volguy10, Lala Gig, and Kisa Powell. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate the support. Be sure to subscribe to get everything, and make sure you click that little bell notification button beside the subscribe button. People are not being notified of when I drop a new video, so be sure to click that to get notified. Thanks for watching, you guys, and we'll see you next time.